It's my pleasure to welcome you to this very special interaction with a very special person and human being. 40 years ago, in the year 1980, a young man from Malaysia, Bangalore, won the most prestigious tournament in all of badminton history, the All England Championships in London. By doing this, he put India on the world map of sport. And at the same time, he converted a country of doubters and disbelievers into a country that believed that suddenly the impossible was possible. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Prakash Padukone. Please give him a big hand. We're honored to have Prakash here with us today, and in the course of this conversation, we will track his history in the sport from his origins and roots to where he currently is as a sports mentor and entrepreneur. We try to find out something about Prakash, the man behind the champion. And we'll also ask Prakash the secrets of what it is to be a champion, not just in sport, but in life as well. Prakash, I can't tell you how honored and excited we are to have you all here. We've all been looking forward to this for a long time. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So, I'd like to start by asking you from the beginning, begin at the beginning. You belong to the community of Chitrapo Saraswat, which coincidentally I also belong to. And this is a community which, interestingly, or you may not be aware, it's only about 25,000 of us worldwide. So it's a very small community, more known for academics than anything else. And it's, so going into sport would be considered something of a risk. Most people would go into engineering or medicine or law or whatever. How did you take this first step of choosing to go into that?
Well, initially, when I started playing at the age of 7. My father used to play. He used to work for the telephone industries, and he actually was more of an administrator. He formed the Mysore State Badminton Association way back in the 50s. He moved from Bombay to Bangalore and started the association here. So that time, badminton was not popular at all. Nobody knew about badminton in the southern part of India. So he started the badminton association here, and he was the first secretary. So he used to, go to a club called Canara Union in Malaysia, and again it's, community hall for the Konkani-speaking people. So there was a marriage hall, and some state players used to play there. So I used to tag along with him as a 6-year-old, as a 7-year-old, and so it was not with the intention of becoming a champion. So I just more to spend time. So he used to just take me along. He used to come back from the factory and go. He played at more like an amateur, not as a professional. He was a national level umpire, but he used to play for fitness. So I used to just go along with him and started liking the sport. Maybe from a very young age, I just loved the sport. So at that time, I had absolutely no idea that I will take up the sport professionally, or and that even I'll play in some tournaments, state level tournaments also. I had no idea at all. It's just that love for the sport, and probably I had as I picked up, maybe just realized that I was probably above average. So I was doing well. My first tournament I played when I was 7-year-old. I played against a much older opponent who was about 18 years old, because that time there was no age category. So they were just junior and seniors, below 18 and above 18. So even if whether you are 7, 10, 11, you have to compete in just one category. So I played against an 18-year-old in my very first tournament as a 7-year-old and 18-year-old. Obviously I lost very badly, but I started crying because I had lost. So maybe that thing was there because I didn't want to lose. So even though I lost to a much older player, so it was not, it just came up, like towards the end of the second game when I was losing, I had already started crying. So, but it was like I said. I had absolutely no idea, where I would reach, what standard I would reach. So it was just the love for the game. I started, and everything else happened over a period of time. So, so I think that way it was, unlike these days when children put into sport or any occasion with a particular goal in mind. Mine was exactly the opposite, and absolutely, it was just the love for the sport that I started playing. And like I mentioned, since I was above average, so I would do well. When I was 11, 12-year-old boy, I won the under 18. As a 15-year-old boy, I won the under 19, the national level tournaments. So gradually things happened, and nothing was planned. So I think it was. I think it just happened. So initially it was just the love for sport and nothing else.
So the message is do what you love and love what you do.
Yeah. And suddenly I realized that I was very passionate about the game. I was prepared to do anything. Like I used to go to a nearby school. So while walking back, like I said, it was basically a marriage hall. So while walking back every day, we would see if there's any wedding, because if there's a wedding, then you couldn't play. The main income for the club was from so 6 months in a year the hall used to be booked for marriages. So if there was no wedding, then we could play. So every day we would look and see if there is a wedding happening. Otherwise we quickly go home, keep the bags, take the racket and come and play. So it's been and I realized that I was very passionate about the sport, and I think. Liking something and being passionate about something, which I realized over a period of time, they are totally different. When you like something, then okay, you like so many other things. As a youngster, I like music. I not to sing but to listen. But badminton, I was passionate. There's a difference between liking something and being passionate about something. And if somebody is passionate, they are prepared to do anything. Wake up at any time, sleep at any time. You don't have to force. Whether it's a child or an adult. Especially children. So if people see talent or passion in a person, I personally feel that one should, as a parent, should encourage the children to give a try, to give it a try. Whether you succeed or not, that's immaterial. But they should be given an opportunity to explore, so that you have no regrets later. And if it doesn't work out, fine. There's so many other opportunities. So I think that is one of the lessons I have learned from my childhood.
So we are very passionate and dedicated people here in this organization, and I'm sure we're all identifying with what you say. You talked about the infrastructure, and that's the courts which are today named after you. When you first started playing.
In fact, this is not the hall. This is which much later has come up. So before that. So this is what
It's the Canada Union where you first started.
Yeah. So in fact, the hall was I think the next to that.
Okay.
There is one behind the marriage hall. So it's not. This is too modern for.
So my question is, you were the first. You were junior national champion way before your time. You were under 16, under 18. You were national champion at the age of 18. So you were winning many tournaments as a junior at the age of 16. And you even won the All England Championship when you were training at basically from the club in Malaysia. The tendency of a lot of people in life is to complain about the constraints and the restrictions that they face, the lack of infrastructure, lack of support, and so on. You didn't complain. You just went ahead and did it. You won the All England Championship from this little club in Malaysia.
I think my father, when I was very young, told me that one of the first things if you want to do something in life is not to complain. So I have followed that strictly, whether it was in my sporting career, before, after, as a father, as a parent, as an administrator, or whatever. Don't complain about anything. Just be happy with what you have. My father clearly told me that even in life or in corporate world, or never compare yourself with with others or what others have. This is what you have. He told me clearly that this is what you have. The wedding hall. If you want, you play. This is what you have. This is what you will get. Nothing more, nothing less. Just do your bit. Don't complain. So I've stuck to that principle, and maybe it came naturally to me. I didn't have to make any effort. So we had so many difficulties, like the game was not popular, so so many challenges, difficulties. But one of the things I never complained. I just enjoyed playing. So whatever was there, it was good enough. Maybe I had no goals as such as a youngster. But I stuck to that. I think that has helped me a lot. Not to complain about anything, with lack of infrastructure. Because he clearly told, like I could have said, oh, Indonesians, they have those facilities, they have coaches, they have, they have the best facility, they have the best infrastructure, they have equipment. We don't have anything. In fact, I think just to go back a little, I think to put it in context, in the 60s when I started playing, like I said, badminton was never played in the south. There was another game, another sport called ball badminton, which was very popular. I think not many know, it's almost extinct now. Outdoor sport played mainly in India. It's not an international sport. Five on each side, five a side, played with a yellow woolen ball called ball badminton. And that sport was so popular in the south, southern part of India, that if anywhere here, if you just say badminton, it was understood that it is ball badminton. Because nobody knew this, you had to specifically say shuttle badminton or shuttle. Then they would relate to this sport. So that was how popular the sport was in the 60s. So nobody knew about badminton. There were only 3 courts, the entire Bangalore, only 3 courts, and one of them was the marriage hall. So you can imagine now, I think there are more than 800 courts all over, just in Bangalore. So despite all this, so my thing was, not to complain. You could, like, there were people who didn't have any facilities at all, or, so my way of looking at it was, 6 months in a year, it was booked for marriages. But at least I'm lucky that I'm getting the other 6 months to play, compared to somebody who doesn't have any facilities at all. And there was no choice. There was no question of, in those days, going to another club, going to another city, going somewhere else, like, it's these days. So it's extremely difficult for the current generation to understand. Because there was no third option. Either you play here or you don't play. These were the only 2 options. Like even when we went for tournaments, later, we would travel to, wherever, different parts of the country, Calcutta, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days by train. Again, air travel, no. There was no question of going by air. You either go by train, unreserved sometimes, sleep for 3-4 days in the passage, or, because sometimes the tournaments were so badly organized. So the choice was this or this, nothing, there's no third option. There's no question of flying. People couldn't afford, and it was not so we were brought up in a very different environment. But despite all this, I never complained about anything because I was so passionate. So any opportunity we got, I would just at least I'm getting an opportunity to go and play. So I was prepared to put up with any difficulties, any hardships. So I think that was the background, and I think that has helped me a lot, and I've continued to do that post-retirement also, even as a father. So I think one of the first things is, my suggestion would be, not to complain. Be happy with what you have. So my father clearly said, this is what you have, this is what you will get, and yet you still have to be the best in the world. Try to be the best in the world. Whether it happens or not, don't worry about. We don't know, but no harm in trying. So, and try to reach your potential. So that has been my goal. So,
very profound lesson.
Yeah.
I really like this picture of you because in this picture, your entire being is focused on that one shuttle. So I want to ask you about focus, and that's something that we, all professionals, every individual basically struggles with, especially in this information overload era. How to remain focused and undistracted. How did you establish that level of focus in a match or in a tournament that allowed you to reach the highest levels?
Well, that probably came naturally to me. My mantra was to put in 100% effort in every session I attended. Whether it was a physical training session, whether it was on the court, my entire thing was you give 100% and then leave the rest. Don't worry about anything else. You can't do anything more than that. not to think too much about the end result. Whether I will win a tournament, whether I will, what will happen. Because that's not, you can't really predict. And no point thinking about it because it's going into the future. So, like if you are training or if you are, if you are in a gym, if you are on the ground doing physical training, if you are on the court practicing, give your 100% in every session. So, this again applies in any corporate world. So, when you come to work, give your 100% what you are supposed to do. Give your 100%, and then that's the maximum you can do. I always focused on things which are under my control. A lot of things, they are not under your control. So there's no point thinking about it. But whatever is under your control, in your hands, so focus more on that and give 100% effort. And at least I have believed in that. Whether others believe, I don't know. But I think that has helped me a lot. There's so many things like selection in the team. Sometimes I felt I should have been in the team. I was not selected. Sometimes when we started representing the country, the government clearance. We have gone to Delhi, saying that we're going for the tournament. Then whatever due to various reasons, team not cleared because sport was not popular. There was not enough money. So we've come back. So these things were not in my hands. So I was never disappointed. We were all brought up. Every time there was a situation, I would ask myself, is this something which is in my hands? If the answer is no, don't complain. Forget about it. Come back. Start doing your job. And whenever the next opportunity comes, take it. So like it could be one tournament, two tournaments in a year. So we didn't know, when the next tournament would be. But whenever we got an opportunity, I tried to do make the best of. Because we don't know when we will get the next. Next tournament could be after 1 year, it could be after 6 months, it could be after 1 month. So very few opportunities we got, and whatever few opportunities we got, we wanted to, to do our best and went all out. And to do that, I think what we did, during practice was most important, and that was, putting in 100% of your effort in every session. So I think that would help. And I left the rest everything to maybe to God too, because so that was in my hand. What I was doing, what I would do, how much time, how much effort whether I give 100% effort in the gym, on the ground, in the court, that was in my hands. So I would ensure and make sure that like at the end of the day, this is the best I could do. I couldn't have done anything more. Come back home, sleep peacefully, and then wake up next day, go to the ground again, give 100%. So focused on things which are in my hands, which are under my control. And again, I think that has not just in my sporting career, even otherwise, I think it has helped me a lot in my life.
Fabulous message. So focus, positives, give 100%, don't worry about the outcome.
Yeah.
And take every opportunity that comes to you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you, from your personal life, you've got a wonderful family. You have two exceptionally gifted daughters. One is a celebrated actress, one is a golfing champion. So as a parent, for the parents in the audience, what is your message what was your message to your children and to children in general, that for them to strike out on their own path? They didn't follow your journey, they took their own decisions. And how to achieve excellence? What is your message?
I think I touched upon it briefly. If your children show, if they are passionate about something, give them an opportunity to explore. To explore that activity, whatever it is. You may not like that. Like I was from a sports background, so I'll give you when I finished my 10th standard. In those days, it was in the 60s. So because I was already the national junior champion, so I wanted to continue badminton, but there was no future in the sense there was no money in badminton. Whereas on sports quota, I could have got into the best engineering or medical colleges. So my father asked me, "What do you want to do?" You want to? So I said, "No, I want to continue badminton because I was not good in science, especially. I was an average student, but I really loved badminton. I was really passionate about badminton." So he said, "You are so passionate. You have to take care of your future. You do what you want. If you're really passionate, then you continue." He didn't force me into joining engineering or medicine, which a lot of parents had done at that time. I think I would have been really miserable if I had gone into, because I was very weak I was not weak, but I didn't like science subjects. I think science was my weakest. So I don't know what I would have done if my father had forced me, because there's no future in badminton, you have to, join engineering or medicine, and I really don't know what would have happened. But in those days, without any guarantee of, of a good job or the good future, he saw the passion in me, that I was so passionate about badminton. He said, "You continue badminton. We'll see as it comes. Let's see what happens when. But you have to take care of yourself. I'm not going to help you." So with that background, I knew what it was. To when children are passionate about something, not to give them an opportunity or force them to do something which parents like. So that was the first hand experience. So it was very easy for me. So when my especially the older daughter Deepika, when she was very fond of getting into modeling. So I told her, both of you, you do whatever you want. I am not going to force you. Both of us, me and I will not force you to take up badminton, or if on your own you take up badminton, I am there to help. But I am not going to force you. You pursue whatever you want. But at the same time, I am not going to use, like you want to go into modeling, or I have no experience in that. We are not going to help you with. You have to do it entirely on your own. Just as I came up on my own, you have to do it entirely on your own. You do your research. You do your whatever you want. We give you a free hand, and we are there to help you. We are there to support you. But otherwise it will be entirely your hard work. And so that with the education which I got from my father, he let me decide, and at a time when when the future was not. So obviously, it was very easy for me to decide, for me and my wife to decide, and we told her very clearly. So Deepika went into modeling, and Anisha went into golf, and they enjoyed what they did. They learned a lot, and Deepika, I mean, she for some time she played badminton as well. She represented in under 15. She represented the state, but I knew that she would have limitations, because you can make out. She would have probably represented the state and maybe one in the top 10 in the country or something. If I had insisted she continue, but I think she would have been miserable. I would have been miserable, and I won't have given her a chance to explore, her passion. It's not necessary that every time whatever a child passionate that will be successful. But at least if you let them attempt, so you have the satisfaction of having tried. Otherwise, the children will have that ground. Generally in the older generation, a lot of the parents have not let the children pursue, whether it was music, dance, art, whatever, sport. A lot of my colleagues, their parents, they said, "Oh, you have to study," so they keep complaining, I wish my father or my parents had allowed me to pursue this, and things like that. So, I think I would, so there are two advantages in this, One is, when you let them pursue their passion, like I said, you have to differentiate between just liking something and being passionate about it. If they are passionate, you should let them explore that opportunity, whatever it is. You may not like it, but if they are passionate, let them explore. And nowadays, kids are smart enough to understand. If they try and if they don't succeed, most of them, I will not say everybody, will realize, and then they'll find an alternate. If they know that no, this is difficult or I'm not. So there are two advantages in this. One is so they have the satisfaction of having tried, and secondly they will not hold it against the parents for not letting them give them an opportunity to explore. So I think it's important that you let them pursue whatever, and at the most like if you study or whatever it is, there could be 1 year delay or a 2 year delay. So it's not the end of the world, but I think there are more advantages in giving them an opportunity, especially if they are passionate, and especially if you like most of the parents these days insist the children to take up something which they like, which the father or mother likes, but the child likes something else. But because the parents were not, like like I'm fond of badminton and I didn't play, then I want my children to play badminton because I didn't have the opportunity of. So I think it should not be like that. So try to find out what the kids want, and if they are passionate, give them a chance or opportunity to explore that.
Very wise advice. I hope everyone in the audience who's a parent is listening
No,
very
it's not. That's what I feel. So what I've done. So it's not a must that everybody should follow.
It's a very profound thing. Like in our family, we used to have school when my children were small, that they had to ask for something for a period of 6 months to show that they were serious about it and that they intended to continue with it before they were given it. So I think that, to show that they're serious and committed and passionate is very important. Children to your extended family of your trainees as mentees, what you're now running the Prakash Graduate Association and the Prakash Management, Curriculum Management Society. So between the two organizations, Prakash is supporting excellence at the highest levels of sport as well as at the grassroots level through a network of coaching programs that he's setting up. So I want to ask you, what is the message to the new generation of players? How do you, what do you, how do you get, now you've got a player like Laksha Sen who's doing very well. What do you say to him when you're on the court with him that inspires him or motivates him to achieve the levels, aspire to the levels of excellence that you have?
I think some of the things which I've told, from my own experience, don't complain. 100% effort in every session. You try to reach your potential. Then don't be satisfied with small results. In the sense, you might win some small tournament. So don't be happy. Don't be satisfied with achieving. Always aim big. Aim big. Try to be the world number one, not state number one, India number one. Try to be the best in the world. Whether it actually happens or not, it's a totally different matter. And have a plan. Aim for something very big. Have short-term goals, long-term goals. Write it down. Put it on a paper. Short-term goals. Next 3 months, what do you want to do? Next, the following 6 months, what do you want to do? In 1 year, what do you want to do? Unlike during my days. And then work towards it. So that's important. It's very easy to make a plan, but the effort also should be the same extent if you want to achieve the goals. And finally, I think if you give 100% in every session you do, then what can you do? You can't do anything beyond that. Whether you actually achieve your goal or not. Okay, you aim for number one. Okay, doesn't matter. You become the India number one or India number 10. Okay, that was your that was the maximum you could do. You couldn't do anything. So it could be, if you don't achieve something, it should not be due to lack of effort from your side. So in short, that is the one thing I would say. You give your 100% and that's it. You can't do anything more more than that. You should not have regrets later. Maybe I could have done more. Had I put in more effort. So that regret should not be there in any field. Whether it is corporate world, in your studies, in your academics, in your university. So like everybody cannot become, like a world champion. Similarly, everybody cannot be a first rank student. You will become number 10. You will maybe get into 20th, 30th. Because that is your potential. So the entire aim should be to reach your potential, what you are capable of, and that you can do by give you 100% in every effort you do. Beyond that, I think it's not in your hand. So then, I think after that you will have no regrets because you've done your maximum. So that's how I feel. In my sporting field, I feel that I have absolutely no regrets because I couldn't have done anything more. That was all I could. So so I have no regrets at all. There's so many people who have achieved bigger outside India, who have achieved better results than me. But I couldn't match this thing but at the same time I have no regrets because I know that I couldn't have done anything more, from my end because I've given my 100% effort. So I have that satisfaction. So I think that should be the mantra for all the, it's not just the sporting field, in any walk of life.
But I think the message of dream big and aspire for the best and give it your best effort. I think having that aspiration and working towards it is
I think with Telenet, I think you've already done that. So you're not just looking at
very kind of.
Bangalore or India, or so I think most of your clients are all from outside. So you're trying to be the best in the world. So I think the staff here also has to rise to that occasion and dream big, aim big, and then I think the joy which you get when you achieve. When you achieve that, of course, it's a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifices. It doesn't come easy. But when you do finally achieve, that cannot be explained. That has to be felt. So everyone has to work towards that.
I'd like you to take us to your story of the All England Championship, and I put up a few pictures from it. So going into the tournament, you had played the tournament previously, and this was, I think, fourth or fifth time you said you were coming back when you won it actually, but you were already India's most promising player. There would have been a lot of expectation on you. How did you deal with the pressure of that expectation going into the tournament? In general, how do you deal with the pressures of expectation?
No, I think one should take like one match at a time. Like I said, not focus too much on the end result. If the processes are good, if you put the right things in place, and then like whatever is comes, it comes. So and at the end of the day, at the end of the tournament, you need to analyze, you need to review, you need to make changes if required. Where do you go wrong if you not succeeded, or if you lost in the quarterfinals, semi-finals. Why did you lose? What could have happened? What you could have done better. Same way it is again in any field. Analysis is very important. So I've never really bothered about that now I have to win this tournament. I have to win this tournament. Prepare well. Give every like I said, focus on giving 100% in every training session. Then try to relax as much as possible, and don't think about the end result too much. Then result will be as per the effort you have put in. So I think that it's not just for the All England. For most of the tournaments, I have tried to follow that principle. Not and sometimes it has worked, sometimes it has not worked. If it has not worked, then I always come back and see what I could have done better. Like let's say in one tournament I won, the other one I lost 6 months later. So what did I do? When I won the tournament, is there something different which I did now? Physically I was not strong, or technically I was not strong, or psychologically or mentally I was. So depending on that, you try to analyze it. Focus more on that. Try to work on your weaknesses, improve your strengths. Try to get even better. Even if you won, it doesn't mean that you can just relax. So you still have to. Next week or 2 weeks later or 1 month later, you have another tournament to play. So there's no time to. So always after every this thing, you need to analyze. You need to. So I went with the open mind. So like in any other tournament, I took one match at a time. Never thought I'll reach there. So and I think even the finals, it was. I never put any extra pressure on myself. No Indian has won, so I must win. I must win this. I just like any other tournament, any other finals or any other first round match. So I think I was not nervous at all. I decided that I had played against him before. I had never beaten him. The current, the reigning world number one at that time. He was Lin Sweeking from Indonesia. I think he had beat me 2-3 times before. So, but I didn't. I was not. I was not sure whether I could win but I decided that I'll not make it easy. Even if I lose, I'll not lose easily. I'll focus on my, like again, things under my control. I'm going to try to control. Whether it happens or not, again, it's we don't know. So focus on whatever is possible from my side, and So first going to one match at a time, then 1 point at a time, and you need to remain focused. You cannot think too far ahead. You cannot go back and last 3 times I played, every time I have lost to him. So you cannot keep thinking about all these. You have to be in the present. You have to be in that particular time. So we call it 1 point at a time. So similarly, I think even in general life also, like to be in the moment, the present. Don't keep thinking about the past or the present. Don't go too much into the future. Don't keep thinking about the past, whether it's good or bad. So it's just that few things, and then so by the time I had won the match.
As I saw, it was a very crushing defeat. You won 3-10 or something, right?
Yeah, it was So
completely dominated and.
Yeah, so I think I was in good. I had really worked hard during those 3 weeks. Before that, I had won the Danish Open, the Swedish Open, so it was like called the Grand Slam. So in 3 weeks, I won 3 tournaments. It was I had never expected, uh, and no one had expected actually. So I think it was like a dream come true for me.
I don't know if I ever told you this yet. My mother, who was an amateur badminton player, I still remember her coming into the room with tears in her eyes and telling me. So there's this very small community of Konkanis, and Prakash is referred to as Amgil Prakash, which is Konkani for our Prakash. It's a very loving term of India. So if you say Amgil Prakash into any Konkani, he knows exactly what you're talking about. And she said Amgil Prakash has won the All England title. And I think that moment of pride for all of India at that moment, it was 3 years before we won the first Cricket World Cup in 1983. So, Indian sport, apart from hockey where we had won Olympic golds, there was not that much impact on sport. So Prakash's victory was really an iconic moment and, a game changer, one not intended for Indian sport. What were your thoughts when you held that trophy up and your homecoming and the motorcade? I mean, share some of those experiences with us.
Of course, when I won the All England, it was definitely a dream come true. Like I said, when I started as a 7-year-old, when I won the All England, I was 25. So, gradually over a period of time, I had started. At only 15, when I won the national junior title, that was when I thought, I think now I should take it up a little more seriously. Until then, it was, I was not very sure of what my future would be. So that's when I started, putting in to become a professional, and in the sense, put in, that I have, if I do well, then I don't know how far I would go, at the world level. So at that time, at 15, 16, that was one of my ambitions, to win the All England. Because All England, there was no official World Championships in those days. So the All England was called the unofficial World Championship. It was the equivalent of Wimbledon in tennis. Like if you won the Wimbledon, you would be considered the world number one. So similarly, All England was equivalent in badminton. So I think it was a dream of any badminton player, to win the All England, and like no Indian had won it before, and India was not considered a badminton nation. We were never good. I mean, we were average. We were probably the top 10 in the world. So like a lot of the other Asian countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, China, Thailand, Denmark, Korea, Japan. So these were the countries who dominated the sport, always. So we were nowhere near, because it was a very physically demanding sport, and Indians were not known for their fitness. So we were always good in like maybe chess, in billiards, snooker, but not in physically demanding sport, except probably like rightly said, hockey, also a physically demanding sport, but that being a team sport. So I think I was extremely happy, delighted. It was one of my life's ambitions. So it was definitely a dream come true. I didn't know, what the repercussions would be when I went back, what it would mean for Indian badminton, because I could visualize. It just happened. So I was happy that I was able to, I was the first Indian and to win. And then I knew that it will have an impact on Indian badminton, and that going forward, Indian badminton would be a force to reckon with in the in world badminton.
So, I have one more question before I throw the discussion open to the house. So that is that, you've achieved so much in sport and otherwise. You're an icon of badminton and of sport in general. You're a celebrity in our country, but at the same time, you're such a regular, humble person, and I had the pleasure of becoming friends. And as a friend, I know you to be a fun person who's like totally chilled and relaxed. So, how do you balance that? The public side with your personal side? How do you stay grounded?
I think that's probably come from my parents. They said, they were very simple. So I've not had to make any effort. I don't consider myself as anything special. that I've achieved something, so I have to be treated differently. That. Uh, so I think it's just right. It just come naturally to me. So I don't believe that I have to be treated differently. I've done, I'm the All England champion. I'm the former world number one. So I have to be, uh, I have to have some special privileges. I like being in the background. So that's my nature. So I don't like to be in the limelight. Uh, and it's not that I have to make an effort, it comes naturally to me. So I prefer that way. And the other one or two things which I've done is, I also feel that what I try to do is I always compare myself with people who have achieved more than me. Like let's say in badminton, one of the best badminton players is Rudy Hartono, who's an Indonesian champion. He's the equivalent of Roger Federer, or he's like probably the best badminton player the world has produced so far. Lin Dan, who's so this Rudy Hartono has won 8 All England titles. I have only one. So compared to him, what have I achieved? I have achieved nothing. So what are you talking about? So why do you need to be treated differently? So always try to compare myself with people who have achieved more than me. So compared to them, you are nothing. You are just like they can say that you're the best in the world, and so you are one of the like so many others who have won maybe 2 titles, 3 titles. So you are one among them. I'm talking in the world of this thing. So maybe in India I might still be the best, but that does not give you the the right or the privilege to ask for something special. So that is my way of thinking. So and like I said, it's natural, and I think the same as my wife is also like a very low profile, and I think that has rubbed off on the children also. So what I've tried to do with the like again as a parent, as a father, try to spend as much time as after I retired. I decided that during the playing days I used to be away for long spells of time. So I've tried to spend quality time with the family. So family time is very important. So I didn't take up a lot of the coaching offers or commentary offers because then you have to be away from home for a long time. You've done your bit, so it's okay. Like even if it means little less money or it doesn't really matter. And especially when the children are growing up, it's important for both parents to spend as much time as possible with the children because in their formative years, what you actually not what you tell them is important, but what you actually show, what you actually do is more important. That's what they learn. So it's important that if you want them to be in a particular way, then you have to do it yourself, and not see tell them you have to be this and but you do something because they will observe that, and so that is my experience. So if you don't want your children to drink or smoke or anything, then you should not do it yourself. Or you don't want them to party, then you should not do it. If so, more by action than by words. So especially the children these days, I think they've picked up whatever, and then whatever they see the parents do. Let's say between 3 and 12, I think that's the formative years where impression is formed. So I think that's the most crucial period. After that, I think they, then if you're not learned during that time, then I think it's a little late because the mind is already set. So I think I spent a lot of quality time, so that's important for me. Different people have different priorities in life. For me, money has never been a priority. Maybe I was brought up in at a time when money is important. I'm not saying that but it's not the only thing. Like the current generation, money is I think number one priority for most people. For me, money is not important. I think first is for me health. Health is the most important. I will give priority for health. Second is peace of mind. I want to sleep peacefully at night without any worries. So that also contribute to your good health. The third would be money. So I'm always trying to when I try to balance my my life. So it's always been in that order. So if somebody offers me $1 million and do something which might affect my health or my peace of mind, I say I don't want. I'm happy with what I have. So that is the mantra which I have followed, and I'm happy with that. But at the same time, it doesn't, I don't mean that, you should do, there's no harm in aiming for, money, but my priorities are very clearly set out. I want to enjoy life, have a peaceful, sound, health first, peace of mind second, money third. So this has been my principles, and we've tried to convey the same to our daughters also. So it's up to them to whether they agree or they don't agree.
That's very profound, and I really appreciate your sharing these insights.